That is because those who disbelieve follow falsehoods, while those who believe follow the truth from their Lord God, thus cites for the people their examples. When you encounter those who disbelieve, now look at this. Can you picture reading this in the Bible? But this is in the Quran, and this is in the chapter 47. And I haven't read that far. I've only read 500 verses. This might be up around 2,000 or more. I'm not sure how many there are. But listen to this. This is verse 4. Verse 4 of chapter 47. It says, when you encounter those who disbelieve, strike at their necks. Then when you have routed them, bind them firmly. Then either release them by grace or by ransom until war lays down its burdens. Had God willed, he could have defeated them himself, but he thus tests some of you by means of others. As for those who are killed in the way of God, he will not let their deeds go to waste. So what it's saying here is, to those of you who believe in this book, if you come upon a disbeliever, it's saying strike their necks. And if you kill them, God is not going to hold it against you for doing that. Can you picture Jesus saying something like that? I'm sorry, but I can't. I can't. And I see around the world, people believe this. 2 billion people around the world believe this. They believe they have that right. Because it says in our book, they even, Jibril, who is being channeled, Gabriel, supposedly, by Muhammad, refers to our book, our people. No, because all people are our people. You can't segregate out these people that believe this way from these people that believe this way. We're all children of God. That's what Jesus teaches. So anyway, I just wanted to touch on that because that's where I have such a problem. I'm not telling people to stop following the Muslim faith, Islam. I'm saying take some of your verses with a grain of salt, just like you say to take some of our lessons in the Bible with a grain of salt. If this is the means for you to feel a closeness to God, but not against your brother, because remember, Jesus teaches, love your neighbor as yourself, even if your neighbor doesn't think like you. In fact, we're going to learn as we get further down in Jesus' story that he gets to the point where he's with his apostles. And actually, we've already gone over it. When he was teaching Ganid, the boy who was the son of the owner of the caravan that had gone all the way up to Rome that Jesus worked for. Jesus would stop. Now, Jesus was not on his mission. He was not known as the divine one. He was just a worker on a caravan that the owner just fell in love with. Jesus just thought he was just the epitome of the perfect man, especially to teach his son Ganid. That guy's name was Gonad. And so I hope this thing just got darkened up. I apologize. I'm not sure why. I should have a button on there that makes it a little bit brighter. Let's see. Oh, look how big my fingers are. I got big fingers. If I try to touch those little buttons, I'll probably knock everybody off. Anyway, but thanks for coming in if you're here live, and thank you for those of you who are coming on and reading this later on or listening to this later on. But I just can't believe it. I can't believe that there is a religion that tells you it's okay to go kill somebody else. I'll read it again. This paragraph, verse 3 in chapter 47, entitled Muhammad. And remember that the term Muhammad applied to Jesus up until the time of this man named Muhammad. People even asked when they named him Muhammad, why did you name him that? because that was reserved for the chosen one. It's for Jesus, but took it anyway. While those who believe and work righteousness and believe in what was sent down to Muhammad, and it is the truth from their Lord, he remits their sins and relieves their concerns. That is because those who disbelieve follow falsehoods, while those who believe follow the truth from their Lord. God thus cites for the people their examples. So when you encounter those who disbelieve, strike at their necks. Verse 4, chapter 47 of the Quran. Then when you have routed them, bind them firmly. Then either release them by grace or by ransom. By ransom. It was okay for Muhammad if somebody was a wrongdoer and you bound them. He said you can let them go if they give their tithe. It's a tithe. It's there's a name for it, and I forget what the name of it is called. The Sarat or Karat, which is sort of like a tithing. And people could buy their freedom, even if they're unbelievers, disbelievers, by paying the Sarat or whatever. I may have that term wrong. Strike at their necks. And then either release them or keep them for ransom. Ransom. Kidnapping. So anyway, let's get out of Muhammad. Let's get back to Jesus. Right now, we're in the story of Jesus. He has left Galilee. He's left with his disciples, and they have gone down to Jerusalem. And right now, Jesus is doing a little bit of teaching. Primarily, he's got his disciples, his apostles, doing teaching. But it doesn't matter. When Jesus opens his mouth, steam starts coming out of the ears of the Sadducees and the Pharisees, who make up the ruling party, which is the Sanhedrin. And Jesus is about ready to get out of Jerusalem. He knows that trouble is already brewing. And this is just his first stop in Jerusalem. Wait till we get to the next one after he travels all around Palestine, teaching truth and healing people. But we'll get to all of that. Just be patient and stay with us. Stay with us. Spend a little time with us each day to learn a little bit more about Jesus, because I know whether you're a Christian or whether you're Hindu or you're Sikh or you're Muslim, you all believe in Jesus. You all know that Jesus was the Son. You know he was the Son, even if you don't want to admit it. Anyway, after the busy period of teaching and personal work of Passover week in Jerusalem, Jesus spent the next Wednesday at Bethany with his apostles, resting. Don't forget, they would take Wednesday as their Sabbath. They needed a day to rest because they were working on the Sabbath when they would go out teaching and preaching. So they rest on Wednesday, and they went up to Bethany this particular day. And what month are we in? We're still in April of AD 27. I mean, that's what's good about the Rancher book, is everything is chronological. Everything is happening almost like real time. We're finding out what Jesus said, what he did between all the stops. And you have to tip your hat to Luke and to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all for giving us the Gospels many years after they had been with Jesus. And many people complain. They say, well, how can somebody remember? How can somebody remember what happened 60 years ago, or not 60 years ago, but maybe 50 years ago, or 40 or 30 or 20 years ago? How can you remember words? How can you remember what somebody said? This is all BS. That's usually the critics of the Bible say, it's all BS. All this stuff came after Jesus' time. And what about all those Dead Sea Scrolls from the Gnosis? The Gnosis were Gnostics, and what they wrote down, they wrote something completely different about Jesus. In fact, some of the Gnostic texts have things from some of the apostles, like Andrew and Philip and Nathaniel, and then Mary Magdalene. So the Dead Sea Scrolls have a lot of things, but in Constantine hated those letters so much that he literally put out a death sentence for anybody who was reading from those books. And that's probably why they ended up in a jar, up in a cave somewhere for 2,000 years, is because whoever owned them didn't want to be killed. And so they stuffed them in a jar and stuck them up there. And we're learning more and more about the time of Jesus through these Dead Sea Scrolls. But you know that God has a hand in putting this Bible together. And Constantine had access to lots of things to put together, but for some reason he really went with Paul, because Paul has like 13 books, which totally eclipses those eyewitnesses of Jesus. But Constantine felt that Paul really struck at the heart of the at the Gentiles, and that's who Jesus had told Paul to go out and speak to the Gentiles and quit persecuting him. So anyway, now Jesus, they're going to take a Wednesday off, and that afternoon, Thomas, you're going to find that Thomas asks some questions that come right out of right field. And Jesus always has to be a little patient with Thomas. In other words, they're talking about the red. Let's say they're talking about the color red. Everything, we're talking about red. When Thomas raises his hand and says, "What about blue?" Just coming in from right field. And that's just as an example to make you understand. He would just come up with something completely different than what they were discussing. But anyway, here, Thomas asks a question. So that afternoon, Thomas asked a question which elicited a long and illustrative answer. Said Thomas, Thomas is asking, "Master, on the day we were set apart as ambassadors of the kingdom, you told us many things. You instructed us regarding our personal mode of life. But what shall we teach the multitude? How are these people to live after the kingdom more fully comes? Shall your disciples own slaves?" Slaves are common then. Slaves are common in the time of Muhammad. In the time of Muhammad, the Arabs bought and sold slaves. I've got passages in here that really discriminate against black-skinned people, and that's in the Quran. Now I'll find it. I'll tell you where it is. I'm not blowing smoke here. I'm telling you what actually is said. They have this thing for white people, and this thing against black people. And they would take slaves, and then they would neuter the men, and so that they couldn't have kids. They couldn't have any kids. So they had these black slaves, and they lived until they died. And so different. I think there are people who are the Jewish faith or Christian faith who could go to the books of Leviticus or Deuteronomy and say, "Oh, look, eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth." No, we grow up in wisdom, and we establish better rules in the secular life. But to continue with that, right up to the present day, with a statement that says, "If you go upon a disbeliever, then strike him in the neck." I mean, there are other places that talks about infidels as well, and I go, "Oh God, how can anybody follow this? This isn't." I don't know much about the Hindu faith. I don't know much about their books, the Hindu books, but I can't believe that there's anything in there that allows for killing. This verse not only allows for killing, but says that you're in favor with God. No way Gabriel told Muhammad that God would forgive those who kill by making judgment over somebody else. I mean, Jesus didn't bring judgment against anybody, even right when he was on the cross. One of the other two thieves that were on the cross at the time of Jesus, one of them didn't want to have anything to do with Jesus. The other one says, I truly believe you are the Son of God. And Jesus turned to him and said, you will be with me at my right hand in heaven. So accepting God right then at the very last moment of your life is still good enough to get you into heaven. So how can you, I was basically agnostic most all my life. I could have been judged, 10, 20, 30 years ago. I could have been judged by someone who reads and believes in every single verse in the Quran. Somebody could have come up to me and struck my neck and felt perfectly justified in doing that. Even thinking that he was in favor with God, that he did it. But look at me here now. I teach, I teach, I tell the story of Jesus. I claim the goodness of Jesus and the importance of him, Michael, coming down and becoming Jesus. Michael is our creator of everything that we see. Everything we see has been created by Michael. So now Thomas he's kind of like, well, are we supposed to teach the people to be like us and to give everything up and go door to door, proclaiming the goodness of the Son of Man or the goodness of the Father? Is that what you want us to do? He says, shall your disciples own slaves? Shall your believers court poverty and shun property? That's what Jesus told his apostles. Get rid of all your property, and don't get involved in politics. Get rid of your slaves. And now the apostles are going, well, is this what we're supposed to teach the people? Is this what we're supposed to teach now? I'm surprised he didn't work that one out before they left Galilee while they were for training for a year or two, a year and a half. Shall mercy alone prevail so that we shall have no more law and justice? This is Peter. This is Thomas asking Jesus. Shall mercy alone prevail so that we shall have no more law and justice? So Jesus and end quote. Jesus and the 12 spent all afternoon and all that evening after supper, discussing Thomas's questions. For the purpose of this record, we present the following summary of the master's instruction. In other words, they're taking a long dissertation. And sometimes I always wonder, when a question is asked of Jesus, does he ever really answer the question? He tends to give us a soliloquy on something else, it seems like. I've asked him many times. I'll ask Jesus in session when I'm in session with Marisa. And Jesus comes in, I'll go, Jesus, what about, and I'll ask him a straightforward question. And then Marisa will channel him for about 30 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever. And at the end of it, he never answers the question. He gives us a whole new lesson. And maybe the answer to the question is somewhere in there, but it's not really evident. So I have to give you a little preface here. Whenever a direct question is asked of Jesus, don't be assured that you're going to get the exact answer that you're hoping for. So Jesus sought first to make plain to his apostles that he himself was on this earth living a unique life, very unique life in the flesh, and that they, the 12, had been called to participate in this bestowal experience of the Son of Man. Son of Man comes, well, you find it in Daniel. I believe you find it in Jeremiah, but you find it first. Excuse me. But you first find it in the book of Enoch. Now, the book of Enoch can only be found in the Ethiopian Bible. There's a longer name for it, but the Ethiopian Bible has 86 books. 86 books. Our Bible has 66 books. The Catholic Bible, I believe, has 73 books. But Jesus found the term Son of Man from the writings of Enoch, and he used that. He is the Son of Mankind. He's the Son of Mankind because he actually is the Father of mankind, just below his Father. So let's see what he says. Excuse me. I don't know why I'm yawning here. So the 12 had been called to participate in this bestowal experience of the Son of Man, and as such co-workers, they too must share in many of the special restrictions and obligations of the entire bestowal experience. There was a veiled intimation that the Son of Man was the only person who had ever lived on earth who could simultaneously see into the very heart of God and into the very depths of man's soul. Very plainly, Jesus explained that the kingdom of heaven was an evolutionary experience, beginning here on earth and progressing up through successive life stations to paradise. In the course of the evening, he definitely stated that at some future stage of kingdom development, he would revisit this world in spiritual power and divine glory. So he's now alive with them, and he's telling them, I will come back. So he next explained the kingdom idea, quote unquote, kingdom idea was not the best way to illustrate man's relation to God. That he employed such figures of speech because the Jewish people were expecting the kingdom. And because John had preached in terms of John the Baptist, had taught in the terms of the coming kingdom, Jesus said, he said, the people of another age will better understand. That's us. The people of another age will better understand the gospel of the kingdom when it is presented in terms expressive of the family relationship. When man understands religion as the teaching of the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man, there it is. That's his whole thing. Yes, he gave lots of lessons, and we'll get into some of those lessons when we incorporate some of the Bible stories. Most of the lessons actually come from not from the well, Peter gives some of the lessons in First and Second Peter. He gives some other things too that are rather interesting, like Peter's book of Revelation ended up in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it did not end up on Constantine's table. So he took 2 letters of Peter, but he didn't take others that Peter had written. And it is in the Peter's book of Revelation from the Dead Sea Scrolls where Muhammad or his followers picked up that fact that Peter was speaking to Jesus, and Jesus was up in a tree, sitting on a limb of a tree, laughing, pointing at the body that was being crucified. So Islam takes that literally to mean that Jesus was actually sitting up in a tree, and there was actually somebody different who was dying on the cross. What Jesus is referring to Peter, and we're eventually going to write Peter's book. We've got 4/5 of it translated, or we haven't transcribed it yet, but we've had the sessions. I'm sorry, Peter, for taking so long to get this done. But Peter was more like not a parable, but what Jesus was referring to when he was pointing to a person on the cross that was flesh, which was him. He's saying the flesh dies, but the spirit lives. That's what he's trying to tell Peter. He wasn't saying, "Oh, I put an innocent man on my cross over there to die, so I can fool all the people and make them think that I died and I did not resurrect." When in reality, that's really me on that cross, and I do resurrect. It's just a way to justify butchering the story. That's all I can believe. I don't know why. I mean, Constantine's book had been out for 300 years when Muhammad came along. It was well known. The Bible had been passed along for now centuries, as was the Torah and the Old Testament and all the books and the scribes and the gospel. But they chose not to believe because they decided to put something different into their story. And so they had to disbelieve. And we'll get into all of that. I try to cover almost everything I can, but we want to focus in on Jesus. And I don't want to take away from any other lessons that other religions give their followers, as long as they're leading the followers to the Father, to accept the Father, because the Father lives inside you. Yes, he lives up here. He's up here. His Spirit lives up in here, inside your head. You can't see him on an X-ray or any other kind of test. He's just there. He's just there. But here, Jesus always talking about the fatherhood of God. We're all sons and daughters of God, and the brotherhood of man. In other words, we're all brothers. Treat each other as if you would want that person to treat you that way as well. Then the master discoursed at some length on the earthly family as an illustration of the heavenly family. Here's what Jesus is going to say about the heavenly family versus, or illustrating how it closely resembles our earthly family. And he restated two fundamental laws of living. The first commandment of love for the father, who's the head of the family, and the second commandment of mutual love among the children, to love your brother as yourself. And then he explained that such a quality of brotherly affection would invariably manifest itself in unselfish and loving social service. You know what? I'm at a half hour through, and I got a light on. Maybe we can get Marisa in here. Let's see. Following that came the memorable discussion of the fundamental characteristics of family life and their applications of relationship existing between God and man. Jesus stated that a true family is founded on the following 7 facts. So there, we'll get back to that. Let's see if we can get Marisa in. See if she's got anything to say today. I'll approve Marisa. Let's see. Send an invite. Let's see if we can get her for a little bit more time than we have over the last week or so. Let's see if it works. While I'm waiting for that to come up, I guess I can get into the first of the 7 facts regarding Jesus stated that a true family is founded on the following 7 facts. Still watching for Marisa to come up in here. And it says it's adding, but it should have come up already. Nope, I've approved you. Send invite. Unable to add guest. Sorry, Marisa, you chose the wrong one again. I don't know why you can't remember the one that works. Intuition. Ask Intuition by Marisa Morris to join the live broadcast. Send invite. Unable to add guest. That's the wrong one, Marisa. You're going to have to try something else. Okay, the fact of existence. The relationships of nature and the phenomena of mortal likenesses are bound up in the family. Children inherit certain parental traits, and the children take origin in the parents. Personality existence depends on the act of the parent. The relationship of father and child is inherent in all nature and pervades all living existences. That was all in the time of paternal. It was man was supreme. Women were considered second-class citizens. Women weren't even given any strong consideration whatsoever, yet everybody loved their mother. Anyway, let's see. Marissa's disappeared again, so let me see if I can try one more time. Nope, can't add. Nothing there. So we'll see. We'll see if Marisa makes it in. She always says, I gotta remember. That's the one that we used that we got in. I'm going to have to remember that. And then we go through this every time. Oh, maybe I should have used this one or this one or this one. She's got so many different ways to get in. I wish she just had one. Anyway, that's it. It is what it is. She'll either get in or she won't. Security and pleasure. Number 2, true fathers take great pleasure in providing for the needs of their children. Many fathers are not content with supplying the mere wants of their children, but enjoy making provision for their pleasures also. 3, this is heavenly versus temporal, the earthly family. Importance, things that are important. Number 3, education and training, constantly. When our brains die, when we stop learning, that's when we die. We die. The brain has to keep functioning. So if you're getting old, you're getting sedate like me, I don't have nearly the physical presence in this world that I used to. I used to walk 6 miles every day playing golf. Every day, walking 6 miles on a golf course, carrying 35 pounds on my back, chasing a little white ball around the golf course. I used to do that every day. Well, I don't do that anymore. But I try to stimulate my mind. I try to stimulate the brain and keep my brain active. And I think if you keep your brain active, the body will follow. Education and training. Wise fathers carefully plan. Well, there's a red light again. Let me see if I'll get Marisa. Nope, I got a keyboard. My finger's so big. Intuition daily. So we'll try that one. Intuition daily living. Send invite. It's adding, so let's see if this is the one maybe that Marisa needs to remember. Intuition daily living. She's got a bunch of them. Nope, that one's not it. It's trying to add, but it's not there. I think it's going to be another one. So I'll keep an eye on that. Wise fathers carefully plan for the education and adequate training of their sons and daughters. When young, they are prepared for the greater responsibilities of later life. Number 4, there's seven of these that we're kind of comparing heavenly family to a secular, temporal, earthly family. Number 4, discipline and restraint. Poor Tawny. I love Tawny to death. I love all my children to death. I take machine gun fire for all my children. And the last thing I ever want to do is see them hurt or sad. But sometimes they have to be hurt or sad when they're constantly wanting something that they're not allowed to have. So I have to be instructive, and sometimes I have to show discipline and restraint. And it breaks my heart. It just breaks my heart to see somebody so young to be sad and to look at me as being like a wrathful father. But children need discipline and restraint. They have to. If you don't, what are they going to grow up being? They're going to grow up being those kind of people that say, hey, you don't like God. Off with your head. Far-seeing fathers also make provision for the necessary discipline and the guidance and the correction and sometimes restraint of their young and immature offspring. This is what's going to happen when we go up to heaven. We are going to be considered children again. And even when we go on off to heaven, we're going to have to have some discipline coming our way. Yipes. I guess it never ends. We try this again. This one is just Marisa Morris, approve. Ask Marisa Morris to join the broadcast. Says it's adding. So none of the intuition. See, that's the one that gets you through, Marisa. None of the daily intuition living stuff, that doesn't work.
Intuition does. That's the one that was on yesterday or the day before. It's just like a gamble or something. It's like, oh, let's see what's going to work today. But that's okay. I don't have anything to say right now. I'm continuing to listen to you read, but at least I'm on here now.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, just pop in if you have anything
let me
to
turn
add.
the echo down in the background. I have you recording on this other thing over here.
Okay.
I'm on here now. There we go. Okay.
Okay. That was 4. Can you imagine? I mean, Jesus is giving lessons to his apostles about how things are going to be in the heavenly family. as opposed to or in connection also with the earthly family. And we're going to still be facing discipline and rest and restraint even when we move on to heaven, because we will still be considered children compared to other people that are up there. Number 5, companionship and loyalty. The affectionate father holds intimate and loving intercourse with his children. Always is his ear open to their petitions. He is ever ready to share their hardships and assist them over their difficulties. The father is supreme. I couldn't add the mother because the mothers do all this as well. But anyway, the father is supremely interested in the progressive welfare of his progeny. The 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 next generations to come. Love and mercy. 6, a compassionate father is freely forgiving. Fathers do not hold vengeful memories against their children. Fathers are not like judges, enemies, or creditors. Real families are built upon tolerance, patience, and forgiveness. That's going to keep family together. I mean, think of all the times that you probably should seek forgiveness from your children or ask your children to offer forgiveness once in a while. Anyway, 7, provision for the future. Temporal fathers like to leave an inheritance to their sons, for their sons. In the Quran itself, they actually break it down, how you're supposed to break down. And when you die, you're supposed to leave, X amount to your concubines and your slaves and to your daughter and then to your son, and each one gets a sixth or this, that. I mean, it goes right down the line, says, okay, you got to give these people this. And if you haven't touched yet your wife because she's under 9, she still gets half the dowry. And you're going, what? Seriously? Gabriel's going to tell us that? No, sorry, don't believe it. Don't believe it. Somebody else put that in there in the Quran, because I just know Gabriel would not have said, well, here's how you break up your earthly things for your family. No, that's for families to decide. That's for the father to decide what he wants to do with anything he worked his whole life for. He may not even want to give it to his children. He may not even want to leave anything to his children. He may have other people that are more worthy of his inheritance than his own kids. But then provision for the future. Temporal fathers like to leave an inheritance for their sons. The family continues from one generation to another. Death only ends one generation to mark the beginning of another. Death terminates an individual life, but not necessarily the family. Marisa's still there. She'll pop in if she has anything to say. And then I'm going to take it up for a few more minutes, Marisa, and then we're going to have to lead up to the end. For hours, the master discussed the application of these features of family life to the relations of man, the earth child, to God, the paradise father. And this was his conclusion. Quote, Jesus' conclusion. This entire relationship of a son to the father, I know in perfection. For all that you must attain of sonship in the eternal future, I have now already attained. The Son of Man is prepared to ascend to the right hand of the Father, so that in me is the way now open still wider for all of you to see God. And ere you have finished the glorious progression to become perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. When the apostles heard these startling words, they recalled the pronouncements which John made at the time of Jesus' baptism. And they also vividly recalled this experience in connection with their preaching and teaching subsequent to the Master's death and resurrection. Jesus is a divine Son, one in the universal Father's full confidence. He had been with the Father and comprehended him truly. He had now lived his earth life to the full satisfaction of the Father. And this incarnation in the flesh had enabled him fully to comprehend man. Jesus was the perfection of man. He had attained just such perfection as all true believers are destined to attain in him and through him. Jesus revealed a God of perfection to man and presented in himself the perfected Son of the realms to God. Although Jesus discoursed for several hours, Thomas was not yet satisfied. We'll get more of Thomas as we go along. Don't forget, he's the one
Thomas
that
reminds me of
wants
you.
to put his... Thomas is the one that wanted to put his fingers in the holes in
Yeah, he's
Jesus' body.
you.
Yeah, maybe. Thomas was not yet satisfied, for he said, "But Master, we do not find that the Father in heaven always deals kindly and mercifully with us. Many times we grievously suffer on earth, and not always are our prayers answered." Now, that's a logical question by Thomas. Where do we fail to grasp the meaning of your teaching? And Jesus replied, Thomas, 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 repeats his name 3 times. Thomas, Thomas, Thomas. How long before you will acquire the ability to listen with the ear of the Spirit? How long will it be before you discern that this kingdom is a spiritual kingdom, and that my Father is also a spiritual being? Do you not understand that I am teaching you as a spiritual children? I am teaching you as spiritual children in the spirit family of heaven, of which the Father head is an infinite and eternal spirit. Will you not allow me to use the earth family as an illustration of divine relationships without so literally applying my teaching to material affairs?
Wait, what did Thomas ask? What did he ask the very last time before Jesus said, Thomas, Thomas, Thomas? What did he say?
He said, how can we trust in this? How can we teach the people what you're trying to teach us now?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Jesus says, Thomas,
okay.
Thomas, come on. I'm not teaching you worldly things. I am just giving you an example of how the family should be treated here.
A very logical question that he asked, though. I don't see anything wrong with that question.
It is. No, it's a very logical question. Be the kind that a good student would ask. But he says, Thomas, Thomas, how long before you will acquire the ability to listen with the ear of the Spirit? How long will it be before you discern that this kingdom is a spiritual kingdom, and that my Father is also a spiritual being? Do you not understand that I am teaching you as spiritual children in the spirit family of heaven, of which the Father head is an infinite and eternal spirit? Will you not allow me to use the earth family as an illustration of divine relationships without so literally applying my teaching to material affairs? In your minds, cannot you separate the spiritual realities of the kingdom from the material, social, economic, and political problems of the age? When I speak the language of the Spirit, why do you insist on translating my meaning into the language of the flesh? Just because I pressure to employ commonplace and literal relationships for purposes of illustration. My children, I implore that you cease to apply the teaching of the kingdom of the Spirit to the sordid affairs of slavery, poverty, houses, and lands, and to the material problems of human equity and justice.
Well, how else are they supposed to relate it? You can only relate to what you can relate to. It's like when the guys tell you, Joe, don't be so human.
Well, he finishes it by saying these temporal matters are the concern of men of this world. And while in a way they affect all men, you have been called to represent me in the world, even as I represent my Father. You are spiritual ambassadors of a spiritual kingdom, special representatives of the Spirit Father. By this time, it should be possible for me to instruct you as full-grown men of the Spirit kingdom. Must I ever address you only as children? Will you never grow up in spirit perception? Nevertheless, I love you and will bear with you even to the very end of our association in the flesh. And even then shall my spirit go before you into all the world. Again, let me go back up to that part, because this is where I have a problem with the Quran. He says, these temporal matters are the concern of men of this world. And while in a way they affect all men, you have been called to represent me in the world, even as I represent my Father. You are spiritual ambassadors of a spiritual kingdom. By this time, it should be possible for me to instruct you as full-grown men of the spirit kingdom. Must I ever address you only as children? Will you never grow up in spirit perception? Gee, where was it? I jumped right over the part where he says, do you expect me to tell you about political things, economic things, temporal? He says, am I supposed to teach of slavery, poverty, houses and lands and sordid secular affairs, and to the material problems of human equity and justice. He's saying, I don't do that. I'm not here to teach you that. But that's what you find in the Quran. So I'll pick up on that. We're going to pick up tomorrow.
That's exactly what you find in the Quran. It sounds like it's a lot of speaking to like the human savage within each one of us type of book. I don't think that was written by Gabriel, by the way. I wanted to cut in, but I didn't want to channel the Muhammad energy because it freaks me out.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me make my tripod higher so it's not cutting my head off. Yeah, it's not, that energy is not a fun energy to channel at all. It's not cool. It causes chaos in my life, just even having that energy around. So I can't even imagine worshiping that energy or that being, or maybe it's, if you don't believe in that being, maybe something nasty comes in, and maybe if you actually love God with all your heart and that's the way that you get to God, maybe you receive like a better energy. But the energy is very, very defensive and hostile and sneaky. And what's derivative mean? It's a derivative.
Derivatives is like generic to a drug that is like I don't know, somebody creates an antibiotic that's called like Bactrim. But then they get that for like 10 years, and then anybody can make it.
Oh, because they said it's a derivative of God.
It becomes a derivative is an off piece, another piece of an original.
Yeah, John just said it's a derivative of God, and just as we have continued to say through you.
Wait. What's a derivative of God?
The energy that comes through, the energy that comes through when you talk about the part of the Quran where they start saying kill people and this and this and that. It's hot out here.
Yeah.
It's he says that's a derivative of God, or a it's not. It's like I don't even want to tune into it, but it's just tuning into it just makes me all crazy. It makes me feel weird, and it makes me feel like I need to defend it to make sure that people believe that it's God, because it's my responsibility to convince people, like it'd be like an attorney who takes on the case where they know the person's guilty, but they feel like they have to still defend them, obviously. So that's what I feel like when we tune into like that Muhammad energy after his wife dies, after when so I know a lot of Muslim people that'll say, well, no, read the scripts or read the beautiful part or whatever. That must be the part before all the laws and stuff come in. So that's why they say read the parts about, because they're pretty spot on in a lot of stuff. But then, like you said, when it comes to like the laws, and that's the reason why I'm not a fan of Paul, because I don't like Paul's energy. Paul, when the beings come through and they're good looking, I know that they're good. But when they're like really like snarly looking and weird looking, it's my mind kind of trying to tell me this person just isn't quite right. And remember, Paul has all those weird teeth and the weird shaped head and the hand and stuff like that.
You know what's funny, Marisa, because that's the way you described Paul. And I really don't. I'm getting closer and closer to Paul. I've always had a problem with him, but I'm getting closer and closer because he was the first to actually write down the story of Jesus and
that we know
what was being taught just right after his. Well, a lot of it's in Dead Sea Scrolls or whatever.
Ruth is
anyway,
the one that wrote it.
Paul started writing about Jesus within about 15 years of Jesus dying. All the rest of them wrote about Jesus 30, 40
whoever
years
Ruth
after he died.
Ruth wrote the true story, and Ruth wrote the true story of Anna and her ancestral line. And in that, Ruth wrote of all the women that came before, and that was all taken out. So Paul came in and he wrote, but he also wrote about worldly things. So that's what they liked about it.
Yeah.
But remembering, and this is Paul coming through, and he's going, well, no, but yeah, okay. He's saying when there's a creation of this world, creation of the mind using the God energy within us, this is a creation of this world in the flesh, and it is of Satan. So Satan is the flip side of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is the creation energy. So is the satanic energy. Lucifer, the devil, all these things are different. The satanic energy is the same. It's just the life force energy that comes into you when you're in your mind, when you're in that which is of man. So when they speak of man, they're bringing people into the creation rather than the creator of the creation. And this is why Jesus came in, to help to lift people up out of the satanic creations that they were creating when they were worrying about slaves and money and laws and this and all these things that are of the world, that are creations of the world that we've created. If we're all God, then we're all the creators of this world, and we're experiencing life through all of the creations that we created as these little souls or these spirits within these human beings. But the human beings are perfect, and the human beings don't realize they're perfect, because the human beings are that which is God. So people are, in essence, have the ability to, and have the likelihood, if they follow Christ, to become like God. And God, no, is not a man. God is a spirit, just as it says in your book. God is spirit. And many religions believe that God is a man. God is man. And many people believe that Father is a father or a man, but Father is the father energy. It's the divine masculine and divine feminine. Every human being on this planet has divine feminine and divine masculine. And it doesn't mean that they're a boy or a girl or male or female. They have both of these energies that come through. The divine masculine comes through like a pillar, like a stream of light coming through you. The divine feminine is you. It's that which dances within you, which moves you, which animates you. The divine feminine is the animation that you are, and the divine masculine is the pillar of light that you stick to, that you stay to, and stay securely connected to God, to your soul, to your path. When you step out of that pillar, that's when you fall away from God. When you fall into sin, you're still with the mother, though. Just like in real life, the mother will stay with the child. The father will say, don't do that. And the mother will run after, oh, it's okay. The mother is always inside. The divine feminine is always inside of us. And this is where the planet's going. The planet's shifting from more of a masculine to a feminine. It doesn't mean from man to woman. It just means from directed and told what to do to animated and given free will to do what you want to do, is the divine feminine. So it's a beautiful thing watching this planet shift and change. This is Paul, watching this planet shift and change, and have an issue with the writings that I brought through, have an issue with some of these writings, because prior to that, they would have an issue with anything other than that. This is what they had to see in order to believe that God was there, that God was withstanding, that God held them tight, that they had to listen to God so that they could be judged later. This is just where the consciousness of man was. But the consciousness of man has risen so high that these books are becoming obsolete. They will become obsolete. And books like the one that you have, where the story is told in between, where the animations of life are shown, and it's not just a bunch of facts put together, there's going to be other books that come through, but it's going to be more of books that were written prior, that were that never came out, that never were shown, like the women writers and the females that were in the picture at that time, because there's many writings that the that the church has, that they hold tight, that they do not allow out, and those will come into fruition in the next 50 or 60 years. But for now, we cannot be mad at other religions, other books in the way that they were written prior, because we were just speaking to man the way that man was. Man will change, and we can see the future, and we can see the past, and we can see how man evolves. And in another 600 years, you'll be back to cavemen again. So it's just this evolving. Man evolves, reaches their highest limit, and then usually they blow each other up. But hopefully at this point, this will not happen. Man will evolve, and then they'll say, oh, we did it. Let's go and do it again. Let's do it again. All right. It's like a movie or like a game that you just love to do. You just want to go back and do it again. Like a scary water slide. You go, oh, you get to the bottom and go, let's go wait in line and do it again. So that's what you as spirit enjoy doing. You enjoy living this life. So allowing yourself to get upset over this, like that people get upset over religion, don't allow yourself to get upset over it. But do point out the fact that they're looking at God in completely different perspectives. But take into account the civilization, take into account the people, take into account what they were going through at that time, and they're very different. They're very different. 600 years, he's saying 600 years is a big difference between Jesus and the Muhammad, but he's not answering my question. If I say, well, is he the false prophet? He won't answer my question. And I said, is Jesus the false prophet? And he says, no. And I said, is Muhammad? He says, no. And he says, you mean the false prophet? I said, yes. And he goes,
zip.
Yeah.
Zip.
Yeah. They won't tell. They won't tell. They just won't. They won't do it. They're like, you're
I
ministers.
just
You don't need facts.
I think there was
I think there was a good Muhammad, and then I think there was
his lower self,
a fake Muhammad, a fake. Whether it was his lower self, he gave in to evil or whatever. In the second half of his so-called ministry, which was for about 12 years, that was it. He was around. But there's two different parts to him, and so we don't know whether it was Muhammad had died, and all those Arabs out there that were trying to bring all the tribes together said, "Wow, he's got it. This is the one. We're going to be able to bring all the tribes together." But he's dead now, so let's finish his work for him.
Where's Serbia in relation to where he was? Serbia.
Serbia is in isn't that Chechnya? That's Serbia. I've been to Serbia. I've been to Dubrovnik. Yeah, Dubrovnik in Serbia. It's on the it's directly across from Italy over
so
on.
It was nowhere near them.
It wasn't that far.
Because I heard he got the Serbian fever. He got a Serbian fever, and then what's that sexually transmitted disease that you can get in your brain? I can't remember what it is.
Well, they say he was poisoned. Some people say he died in 3 days from the poisoning. Others said he lived for 3 years.
No, he lived for almost 5 years after he had this Serbian fever, and he got it's like chlamydia or something in his brain. Like he got like a sexually transmitted disease.
I think he went cuckoo.
Yeah, he went crazy.
I think
he went crazy,
cuckoo.
But he already
I
had
think he did.
People were already respecting him, and he had power, like people listening to him, and he went nuts because he got a sexually transmitted disease from one of his wives or something like that, and they got put to death. And then, but then it traveled to his brain. It's not, I can't remember what it's called, but it's something that, like, if you get it, it travels to your brain and it makes you go crazy. But they said something about a Serbian fever, and then 3.5 years later, it was like almost like a sexually transmitted something or other, and then he ended up dying. But he went crazy first, and he wrote a bunch of stuff down and had a bunch of people killed, and he just got really paranoid, kind of like a paranoid schizophrenic person.
Yeah, that's my feeling. But boy, don't try to tell a Muslim that. You know, they're going to say, "Oh my God, you're one of those people. We should chop your head off."
And I don't think all of them are like that. I think the radicals are like that. I mean, we don't take word for word a lot of things.
The radicals,
yeah,
the radicals take it.
But the other people, I think, take it.
And they feel it's justified. The things that they do are justified.
That's crazy.
So anyway, okay, Marisa, we actually went over an hour. So I want to kind of keep these to an hour. So
well, I'm going to edit it down, and I'm going
to
post it again at 4:30. Let me see.
Oh, good.
Yeah, hold on. Let me see. So Mary is here, and so is Ruth. And Ruth just wants to say, you can't always listen to the things that are written down in this world. The only thing that makes things stick in this world is writing them down, and anybody can write. Anybody can write anything. And when something is old, it does not make it true. Many people think, oh, this is so old, it must be true. And that's not the case. So always remember this. And just because it's channeled, it does not make it true, because if it's channeled, it could be channeled from the source of all light, source of all darkness. It could be the source of whomever or whatever. So it's using the discernment within yourself, within your gut, within your heart, within your mind, and knowing what feels right to you. If it feels right to you to hack somebody in the neck, which it should not feel right, then that's something that you have to deal with your creator later. But what you must look at all these for is the ministerial way of looking at them. Look at it. If your mind was triggered by going into the heavenly realms and the paradises, if you thought, what's paradise? And you think, oh, what's that? That's something that your soul wants to know about. So pursue that. Say, oh, what about the paradises? After I die, I go to a paradise and I end up there. What is that? And you pursue that. Don't just continue on with, they're not talking to you, she's talking to everyone. Don't just continue on with reading the same book here, here, and here like that. When you have a piqued interest, that's your spirit telling you to follow that direction. Joe, just as you follow the direction of Muhammad, you follow the direction in which we point you, because you get interested in certain things, and it's for a reason. It's to show the variance of how people see things, the perspectives of how people see things, because you're here not only to bridge spirituality and Christianity, but all the other religions as well. And we're not putting you on a task to go conquer all the religions, just what you're interested in. But in the end, what you're looking for is what happens when you die. That's all you want to know. That's all anybody wants to know. They want to know, where do I go? What happens? Where was I before? And where do all my loved ones go? And what's going to happen when I die? And that's all I want to know. And if we told you, then you'd stop searching. So that would ruin the surprise. I said,
Yeah,
well, why don't
makes
you just
sense.
tell us then? And she said, no, that would ruin the surprise. This is Ruth. I don't know who Ruth is. Is it like a sister of Jesus?
Well, there's a Ruth in the Old Testament, and then there's Ruth, who is Jesus's baby
That's her.
sister.
It's his sister.
Okay.
She's the one that wrote the books.
Okay. Oh,
She
okay.
wrote the books that
Okay. Well, I'll have
Paul went
to
off of. So
do some research.
Paul took the books that she wrote and he pulled from those, and same with Luke. So they pulled like
Really?
yeah, Ruth is the writer of the New Testament. She was the one that wrote everything. She was
Whoa.
extremely, I got chills everywhere. She's extremely educated. Mary was very into like not the Gnostic, you were talking about the Gnostics,
Yeah.
into like energy and the kundalini and connecting to God and life force energy and man and that divine feminine and masculine coming together to create miracles with the Holy Spirit. But it was different terms, and Ruth was like really into it. And she studied and she wrote everything down and she read and she wanted to carry on all the stuff that Anna and Mary and that they all continued to pass down through the feminine line of the Christ family. And so she carries the feminine Christ energy, and she actually one of her pieces is Sophia. So she's a piece of Sophia. Like Sophia is the spiritual aspect of her. Wisdom, like they used to capitalize wisdom in the old Bibles because it was part of God. So Ruth came in as kind of as wisdom, whereas Yeshua came in as the Messiah or the Savior or the example of what man should live by. And she came in to bring the wisdom to back up things and to carry forth the truth through time with writing. She was the writer. She was the writer. I just asked.
I'll have to research.
Research
I'll
her
have to research
and
and
let's
see if
channel her
there's.
tomorrow. Let's channel her tomorrow because she's got a lot to
Well, let's
say.
see. Yeah. Well, let me work on that today. Just to wrap up today, once again, we never know when we're channeling. We never know, except that we do prayers to keep the darkness
Mhm.
out. But we're never really quite sure when Lucifer comes in and tries to change whatever we're doing.
Yeah.
That's why if we ever put it in book form, we reread
Mhm.
it again to make sure that it was from the light, not from the dark. So Muhammad didn't have anybody like that. He didn't have anybody to say, you know what, you're channeling the
Mhm.
dark side
No one
here.
had
You
the
know,
guts to.
that
No one
is
had the guts to. He was the
that is
messenger, so no one was going to say anything to
yeah,
him.
then he would have had the right to
Yeah.
off with your head because you're questioning him. That's sad state of the faith. But one other thing, and I'll let you go. I've been watching a lot of documentaries and things about Christ, about Muhammad, about the junction of Christianity and Islam. And one of them had gone to the big church in Turkey, when Constantine had moved the Roman Empire from Rome to
Hmm.
Constantinople, which was called another city
Well,
back
that's what I
then.
called it.
But it's in Turkey. Is really Constantinople is much better located to the whole Roman world than Rome was. It was more central. And so I could see why they moved it. But the great church there that's in Constantinople has pictures of Jesus as we would expect him to look with a beard and the long hair. But they've got a picture of Paul. You know what Paul
Probably how I
looks like?
described it.
Almost
What?
exactly. He's got a flat
Oh my
head
gosh.
with hair that looks like a hat, and he's got ears that stick out, and he's got great big round
Oh my
eyes,
gosh.
big black eyes with ears that stick out. His head is flat, and his hair
I
looks
wonder what
like a
his teeth
hat.
look
And
like.
that
His teeth are so
probably,
weird. I mean, they didn't have
yeah,
dentists
probably
back
bad. I
then.
don't. But yeah, you described Paul when we were first doing his book
Mhm.
many years ago, and we had no reference to that. But I just saw
Oh my
this.
gosh,
I
that's
wish
so
I
funny.
remembered which one that I saw, but they showed this picture of Paul, and I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly the way Marissa's
Well,
described him. It's
that makes me
amazing.
feel better because I always figure if I see someone and they look ugly, that's my mind's way of distorting like something to tell me that's not good. So that makes me feel better that he's funky looking, and maybe I was just my mind or the guides knew that that's what he looked like in there, so it'd be confirmation for me that it really was him. Because I'm always like, do we trust Paul? Is he like, they made the Bible 66 books. That's like the number of like Satan, and then he brings in all this man worldly stuff of the flesh. Like, is he Satan or is he the Antichrist? And I always get all nervous about Paul for some reason. He makes me nervous.
I don't think so. I think Paul just incorporated a lot of Greek philosophy into
Peter
Jesus's
goes,
teaching. So
that
a
dude
lot
can't
of
be the root
people,
of all evil.
no, he's not the root of
That's what
evil,
Peter
and a lot of
said.
people call a lot of people call the New Testament of Paul's writings as Pauline Pauline theology,
Oh,
theology, because he does bring up things that are from the Greek
yeah.
philosophers uh, uh, that
And he never
Jesus
knew
never talked of.
Jesus.
He never met him. He only was scolded by Jesus on the road to Damascus. But when he was blinded, and then he got his eyes back, and then after that, he became an ambassador to the Gentiles.
Yeah.
That's where Jesus wanted him to go, was to go to the Gentiles. But anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. The other thing is, I forwarded something to you that one of your clients has sent to me. And it's a guy. He looks like he's about 30 years old, 32 years old, kind of little chubby. He's got one of those light beards, like he'd love to grow a big thick beard, but
You
he's
got
just
spots,
not thick
yeah.
enough. And it's kind of spotty all around, but he's trying to grow a beard. And he sat there and he was channeling, and this is what was sent to me. He's channeling, and he was saying, and the earth is shifting, and we're moving from a fourth dimension to a fifth. He was saying exactly the things that you say, and he was sitting there with his eyes closed, just rapid fire, just like you. But it was all the stuff that you talked about.
Maybe he's
Look for it. I
books.
sent it to you. No, he was channeling. And it was from one of your good clients.
People can channel their mental body, though, and the mental body is comprised of all the thoughts of the entire earth. And that's why when I teach channeling, I tell people, don't channel your mental body, because it's just all the thoughts that everybody has as the collective. And that's what most people channel. You need to channel your soul and God, like God energy. Otherwise, you're just regurgitating other stuff that people read, they wrote, and they said, and everything like that. So I'll watch them, and I'll be like, that's source. That's what I like about the fact that I'm going to be editing these. You guys, I'm going to run them at 4:30 each day if I can handle, if I can figure the electronics out. But I'm going to download these. I'm going to edit out. If anything comes in dark side, I'm going to edit out the dark side thing. And if I'm watching the video, because I'm going to rewatch it and edit it each day. And then if something is like, that was the dark side or something like that, I'll just clip it out. That way the edited versions will be nice and clean.
Go back to our site on Answers Heaven Speaks, and go back to Tuesday.
Okay.
See, today's Thursday. Maybe it was Monday. Might have been Monday. Yeah, I think maybe Monday was the one. I don't know. But it'll show a picture of me on top and you down at the bottom. And then go in there and see where it has been sent from.
Vimeo.
Is it Venmo?
Yeah, Vimeo.
Vimeo. That's where you're going to have to send it. We got an enormous response from that. Enormous. I mean, for us, it was enormous. We got like 300 likes and hearts just from that one day.
Wow.
Yeah.
The algorithm must
we
like
normally get anywhere
videos.
we get 50 to 100 per day. This one got like over 300 in one day. So yeah, that's where you want to resend these.
I'll do that right now.
And they obviously go out to other places that Facebook doesn't want to send them out. So anyway, let's wrap it up. We're already at
all right, guys.
an hour and 15 minutes. So
thanks for being here. This will be posted again at 4:30, and then we'll see you. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Friday.
Tomorrow's Friday.
Yep, I'll be here. I'll be here tomorrow.
Okay.
And I'm gonna come in tomorrow on Intuition Daily Living, which is I'm under Marissa Morris right now, I think.
Yeah, Marissa Morris is what you're
yesterday
under
I was under Intuition.
And if you want to come in, early.
I hit the request. I hit the request at 1:04 or something, and you didn't see me until 30 minutes later. So I think the guides have everything to do with this. They decide when they're going to let me in. They decide. You started yawning when I sent like 15 requests. And you're like, why am I yawning? And I'm like, because the guides are here and they want to talk. And I kept sitting requests, but you didn't see anything. I know why. Yeah, you're yawning because over here.
Yeah, that's why I always yawn when they
come in. You started yawning as soon as Jesus got here, and he was like, time to talk.
I gotta go to sleep. Yeah, I'm tired. But then I go to sleep and I listen to everything and pop right up and ask a question.
Exactly.
But anyway,
guys. All right, Marissa, I'll see you later. Thank you for watching. Love you, Papa. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll post this on Vimeo. You'll see it go up.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Marissa.
Right. Tell Tanya and Drew hi.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Mm-hmm. Okay. Hey, everybody. That's it for today. Joe Morris and Marisa Morris on Answers Heaven Speaks. Marisa will rerun this, so it'll go out to places that this normally may not ever go to, but we try to get it out as far as we can. And it's just a discussion about God. We're just talking about God. Marisa has the ability to channel, and she has some pretty good channeling and advice for us today. So go back and listen to that. She came in at about the 45-minute mark, the 40-minute mark, somewhere around there. But anyway, if God's willing, he's going to bring us back, and we're going to be doing this all over tomorrow, and we will continue on with the story of Jesus. He's about ready to get booted. He's going to take off and get out of Jerusalem because the Sadducees and the Pharisees they're turning up a raised eyebrow. Let's put it that way. They got a raised eyebrow about Jesus. Like, oh, who is this guy? He's stirring people up. So we're getting into the meat of it all now. So we'll continue with his story. All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Take care. God bless. Do the will of the Father. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.